In this lesson, you'll learn about character and paragraph properties of text in Illustrator. So go ahead and open up a new document, and if you click and drag out, and I've got character and paragraph panels up. If you want to get to those, just go to Window. I have to actually pull this up a little bit. Window, and then Type. You can barely see at the bottom, and then Character. All right, so once you're in the character panel, you can also have the paragraph panel here. That's all under Type. So Window, Type, and then Character or Paragraph. And so there are not as many options here compared to Adobe InDesign, which is of course more for flowing text compared to Illustrator. And then Paragraph, we have a couple of the same options, but not as many. So once you have your typed in here, you can change some basic things like the font up at the top, up on the control panel, of course, the stylizing of it. And you can do the same exact thing right here. It's the same effect, just a different area to add that effect. There's also size, and then the leading is basically the vertical space. So if I select that and then go to 36, and you can see there's a little bit extra space there. If you go to auto, that's the auto, it correlates with the font size. So for 21 point size, for this example, it's 25.2 point for the vertical space, basically. Now the ones below there, we do need to know this, especially for logo design. There's kerning and then there's tracking. So the one on the left, it's got this VA and then a little line and an arrow. Kerning is the space between two letters. And so tracking is a space between all letters, whether it's in a word, a paragraph, a sentence, an entire page. Just depends on what you have highlighted. So if I change this here, say to 100, you can see now there's extra space between all the text. And if I set it to -100, it's more jumbled together. And then if I set it to 0, that's the default. So where kerning comes into play, it's really important in logo design. So I'm going to click and type in the word design here. And I'm going to make this larger. And if for some reason you didn't like the spacing in between some of these individual letters, we could adjust that with kerning. So we want to take the type tool and just insert it in so it's blinking wherever we want to adjust. And then right here where it says 4, I can change that, say -50 or +75. You can see it affects it. You can type in manually a number, so you can see it affected. The problem arises in logo design when we have one letter and it's just too close or too far away from another letter. So sometimes it's, say the word story, and the S is often a little bit closer. This one looks fine, but see that R and the Y? That R and Y are pretty close compared to the O and the R and the T and the O and the S and the T. I did not edit this yet. I just typed it in. And I'll show you right here. If I click on it, it's all got 0 for kerning. So that R, if this was a logo, I would suggest increasing the kerning between R and Y. So you put the cursor in there in between the two, and then you bump it up little by little until it looks right. So we want to increase that quite a bit actually for this example. We could even go to say 50 or so. Now see how that looks a lot more consistent with the spacing in between. You could even pull guides out and measure it if we wanted to have a consistent spacing, but that looks a lot better than the default, which the Y is just way too close to the R there. So that's kerning and tracking. On the paragraph panel, if you click on that, there are a couple more settings here. So I'm going to select this text. I just clicked once, double click, and then click again really quickly, and it highlights it all. Or you can click and drag over it, or press Control or Command A if a cursor is blinking in there. So it's left aligned. You can center, you can right, just like in a word processing program or Adobe InDesign. And you can justify with the last line aligned left. What that means, it looks like the magazine straight column look. It stretches or compresses, so it just has a flush left and right hand side. It's not ragged, but the last line is justified left, or center, or right, or they're all justified. You have left indent, it'll just indent the left-hand side, and right indent, or the first line of a paragraph. Usually we're not dealing with large paragraphs of text in Adobe Illustrator. Usually we're creating illustrations, we're creating logos, so we're creating short, small phrases or words in Illustrator, but it does have this option. When we flow text, we're referring to InDesign, of course, but it still has that option in there if we have a paragraph in Illustrator. And space before paragraph and after, it would add extra space before or after a paragraph. So that's how you edit character settings and paragraph settings in Illustrator. It's not as in-depth as InDesign because it's not really meant for advanced text flowing and editorial design, promotional design and advertisements and things like that. As far as text goes, it's more for creating illustrations, vector art, infographics, and in the context of text, logos and short stylized text. I will see you in the next lesson.